Hello and welcome to the Pi Crowdcast. I'm Rick Tarosi, co-founder and general manager of Pi, and I'll be your host. Our guest today is Erica Escalante, the owner of the Arrow Coffeehouse here in Portland, Oregon. We'll be talking with Erica about how this pandemic has completely changed the way she does business for the foreseeable future. We'll talk with her about the impact of imposter syndrome and how she deals with it. And finally, if you stick around to the end, she'll talk through a rebrand that's in the works for her company. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting subscribe. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up or leave a comment and let us know. Now, let's get into this interview with Erica Escalante of the Arrow Coffeehouse.
Okay. Well, I'm the owner and founder of the Arrow Coffeehouse. I have been in this for 7 years now. I opened 7 years ago, and I am 29. So I'm going to turn 30 at the end of this year, and I'm excited for that. And so I've been doing this for a while, and I also am the co-owner of Kitchen Hood Commissary, which is in Northeast Portland. We rent out kitchen space to small business owners that need a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, and I've done that for 3 years now. And I have 2 little kids. So I have a 6-year-old girl and a 1-year-old girl. And so it's just a busy life.
Yeah, what does a typical day look like for you these days?
Oh my gosh. Well, I got to work at 2:30 this morning. So I'm a baker at the Arrow. I bake everything in-house. So I get up and I went to work at 2:30 and I delivered everything by 7:30 to 6 other coffee shops in Portland now. And and actually I just had a rough morning and I just couldn't get my brain to work. So I called in my husband to work my coffee shop shift for me. But normally I stay and work a coffee shop shift until about 1 o'clock. And then I come home and spend time with my kids. And probably about by 5 or 6 p.m., I'm ready to be in bed and to go to sleep.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the day for you. So
yeah, this is the last thing I'm doing before bed.
Try and keep it a little mellow. We don't want you to get too excited. So I think one of the reasons that your name often comes up in conversation, especially these days, is, 10 weeks ago, the entire world changed and your role as a retail operation changed. Maybe talk a little bit about not only what you experienced, but how you've made changes to your business to kind of survive during this pandemic.
Yeah, so coronavirus hit and we, I just didn't want to close. I just can't even imagine that. Like I don't really own anything besides the coffee shop, and I don't really have like some sort of cushion to pull from. So it's like the rent is due. And my employees were on board. So we just stayed open, and I quickly just made an online store for people to order in advance. And then quickly realized that running to the door every time a person came to say, like, what's your name, to pick up your order was not fun. And so I just went online and I found a drive-through speaker box, and I installed it outside on some signage, and then the microphone's inside. So now when people come up to the door, we can talk to them, say hello. We could still stay far apart from them and grab their order. And that's been great. We've been rocking that since the beginning. And now I am a wholesale pastry baker, which I didn't have any wholesale clients before this. I was only baking for myself. And now I'm delivering to 6 or 7 shops on a consistent basis. And I have more inquiries that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. And so now that is a big part of our income now, is the wholesale side.
And is business doing better, or is that replacing previous business? Like, what are you seeing in terms of customer base or that kind of thing for the business?
Yeah, it's weird. It's hard to compare numbers. It feels it's like comparing apples to oranges in a sense, because my Portland location is only 3 years old. And so with cafes, you have the first 5 years is you're either going to go like this or you're going to go like this. And we were growing 15% every year from opening. So 1, 2, 3. And so this year was supposed to be a really good year for us. We're on a projection. And so as of right now, we're about doing the same as last year, but we're open like 3 hours less. So that's cool. But I'm also, that doesn't include baking. That the wholesale baking is separate. So we're doing better technically than we were last year. But it ebbs and flows too. We'll have like a $1,500 day, and the next day is a $500 day. And so it is really hard to schedule. It's really hard to figure out when I need to be there. It's just very inconsistent. So like next week could be terrible or it could be great. It's weird right now.
Yeah. Well, and I can imagine that, that just kind of consistent customer doesn't really exist the way it did in the kind of previous world.
It's a little weird. We have regular customers. We're doing delivery also. I forgot to mention that we're doing delivery just within a mile radius. So it's just our immediate neighborhood. We can do the delivery under 8 minutes. And we do have regular customers. The funny thing is we don't actually know who they are, but I go to their house every day and I text them every day. It's weird. Yeah, I know where you live and I know your phone number, but I have no idea who you are. And sometimes they will come up to the door. Sometimes they will pick up and I'll be like, oh my God, it's you. Like, I know you. But yeah, it's definitely different. It's definitely our immediate neighborhood. We're seeing new people that we never saw before. We're definitely not seeing a lot of our regulars from before, but it's just a new era.
Yep. And do you, I guess, future-wise, do you see the wholesale baking continuing? Will it be kind of a try and go back to as normal as it could be? Like, what are you thinking for the future of your shop?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I've been thinking about it all day, every day. Mostly because a lot of the wholesale clients I have right now chose me because their baker is shut down. And so when those bakeries maybe open back up, I don't know. I know some of my clients are definitely going to go back to their last baker. They have already said that at the beginning. Some of my other clients, I don't know if they're going to want to go back to their old baker or not. Hopefully I left an impression, but like, at the same time, like, it's going to be weird when things do start opening back up to see what happens with the clients or not. Wholesale baking is a beast. Any kind of wholesaling in general is a beast because you just have to produce so much in order for it to be profitable, because you're selling it for way less than what you would sell it in-house. And so right now I'm trying to decide, do I focus my attention on growing this wholesale program? Because that's a whole different thing. And the money I would spend on equipment is different. The money I would spend on, the things are different. Or do I just do this temporarily and then focus back on the cafe on advertising that? I don't foresee us opening the doors again for a really, really long time. I think we're going to rock the online ordering and the speaker box for as long as possible. And because now my cafe is all storage. So and it's just different now. And I think we have a system and it's too stressful to try to think about opening the doors. So we're just not going to do it.
Yep. No, I think that's really smart. We had Julia from Milk Run on the show on the Built Crowdcast. We had New Seasons and Market of Choice, and all of them talked about how staples are really the thing that's impacted here. So your flour, your eggs, your milk. How is that impacting the baking for you? Has that caused additional stress for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. And luckily, I think when this all happened, I just got so much adrenaline and survival just kicked in, and I just didn't need to sleep, and I didn't need to eat, and I didn't need to do anything except work. But the problem is that the restaurant stores are now only open from 8 to 4. Well, or 8 to 6. The cafe is open 8 to 4. So there's no time. If I have to be at the shop, I cannot go. grocery shopping. And then when you get there, they limit you to one bag. So literally every day I was going to buy a bag of flour because we go through 250 pounds of flour a week. Wow. And, we reached out to like other wholesalers to get it delivered. And it's just, there's not enough time in the day to field that. So luckily we were able to get by. There were times where like my mom lives in Salem. She went to her local restaurant store to buy me a couple bags of flour and then would bring them up on the weekends. And so we were just doing the best we can. Luckily, we are friends with the people at our local, smart food service. So they did let us buy a case of yeast one day, like during COVID. I was like, please, this is like so important. And they let me do it, which was nice. And now they are letting me buy as much flour as I want, which is really, really nice too. Cool. So it seems like it's gone better now. It's smoothing out, which is good.
Good. That's awesome. One more question that I'm dying to ask, and then we'll start getting to the audience questions. And folks, please feel free to submit questions down near the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. Tell me about the hamburger thing. Like I saw some social where you're like, oh, we have somebody who kind of likes hamburgers, so we're doing hamburgers today. Like, what? Talk a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. So it's, when this all happened, I actually was understaffed. I had like 3 people randomly quit around the same time for different reasons. And I was actually worried I was understaffed. And then this all hit. And then I had the perfect amount of people. I had 2 people left literally in my job. And then as we started getting busier, we needed to find more help. And so we had regular customers that I knew were in the service industry. And every time one of them stopped by, I was like, hey, do you want a job? And they said yes. And these are guys that have worked in restaurants, like high-end restaurants all over Portland, like Tusk, Laurelhurst Market, like big name kitchens. And like, I don't have any restaurant experience. I'm just making this up as I go along. So like we have a full breakfast lunch menu. We've worked it out. I think it works great. But it just felt like, oh my gosh, these big chef cook guys are coming into my kitchen. And they're so great. They want to do whatever I tell them. It's amazing. And one day I was literally in the cafe and I was like, man, I really want a cheeseburger. Like, where can we get one right now? And it was kind of in the midst where most places were closed. And the guy, he comes out, and the chef, and he lifts up his shirt and he has a tattoo of a cheeseburger on his arm. And he goes, I will make you cheeseburgers if you want cheeseburgers. And I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden we had a cheeseburger day, a cheeseburger weekend, and they were so good. Like they were amazing. Very popular. I baked the bread for them, and he like knew exactly what to do. And so they're definitely going to come back. Like cheeseburger day is gonna stay for a while. So they're definitely coming back.
That's awesome. Okay, we've got a lot of questions rolling in, so I'm going to jump over there. Again, folks, if you have a question, pop into the Ask a Question queue and submit it there. Or even if you don't have a question, feel free to pop in there and kind of upvote questions you'd like to see us answer so that we can focus on the stuff you're interested in. Okay, first question. Talk to us about how you've altered your approach to social media since the pandemic. So we talked a little bit about having to stand up the e-commerce site, but how have you changed your behavior on social?
Well, so I think coronavirus happened and everything on social media was so depressed, and every company was posting the same thing, like due to coronavirus, due to this, blah, blah, blah. And it just felt so sad. And everyone was posting about how depressed they were. And I'm super into TikTok. I love TikTok. You can find me Brew Like a Mother. And I had not really made any TikTok videos. I just was like creeping on everybody. And so I found this clip of this song, like We're All in It Together. It's from, I think, like a High School Musical kind of thing. I don't know. And It's just a little dance. And so I made one and I posted it on social media of me dancing, which I would have never done in a million years, like ever. And I posted it and it just blew up. People loved it. They were like, this is so great. I didn't even get the moves right. But like, I just posted it to be silly and to lighten the mood. And then from then on, we did another one, and then we did another one and another one. And so now we have like 8 like goofy either dancing or skits or whatever videos on our page, and we have more to come. But the staff was super into it. They're like, let's try it, because every time we posted one, we had really busy sales days. So I was just like, okay, sales drop, we need to do some dancing. Like, let's go. And yeah, so TikTok is dancing videos. I'm all for that.
That's awesome. Let's do this one. Who is your inspiration for the coffee shop and running your company?
Oh, that's hard. I feel like now that I'm in the industry, inspiration is a little hard to find, just because I realize in the coffee industry specific, there's just no one doing what I'm doing except for Ian Williams from Deadstock. He's one of my best friends. We talk all the time, and like, he inspires me all the time. Like, we talk about our business through and through every week, figuring out how to do it well. And but really, when I was younger, before I opened my shop, I was super into coffee. It was my first job out of high school, and I knew I wanted to do it forever. And there was just some amazing moments when I was young, when I went to my first coffee expo. I saw a woman judging latte art on the mic, and she was kind of serious. And like, I was just like, whoa, I want to be her. And she happened to be Sarah Allen. She owns Barista Magazine. And so she just was so, I was like, whoa, I could be her, And there's another woman, same, where I saw her. She was actually making coffee, and she had a microphone on her face, and she was talking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could be her too. And so that, I think for the most part, the most inspiring part of the coffee industry is the people in it, just all the baristas and the workers. And we have a very strong coffee Twitter family. But they're so inspiring because they're so open about their experiences online. And this is why I love Twitter, is because people just give you free information and free perspective into their life. If you're just paying attention, if you just learn, and just hearing about how these people talk about empathy, nonviolent communication, equity in the workplace, all these different things. It's just so inspiring to me of like, hey, I'm actually in a position to do those things. Like, I could actually do these things. And so like that is the most inspiring to me, is hearing people talk about their lives and their perspective. And that has been the best resource, I think.
Well, and I think part of the local coffee culture anywhere, that I wasn't really exposed to until, Ian kind of revealed some of this, or you kind of revealed some of this. So there's a very like social dynamic to the coffee shop owners, right? Like you're a group of people who support one another. How has that been affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, I think from what I've heard and understood, it's a lot of Portland cafe owners seem to be the closest. I think I've had a lot of conversations where they go, "Oh, you guys all talk every week?" I'm like, "Yes." But when this all happened, I reached out to my closest roaster friends, which is Ian, and then the owners of Marigold Coffee, 2 sisters. They're really excellent. And then the owners of Gilder Cafe, or Junior's Roasted Coffee. And I just said, hey, I'll buy 10 retail bags from you. I'll try to sell them in my cafe. And I've been selling all of their coffee consistently week after week in the cafe. And so I went from just supporting 1 roaster to supporting 3. And when this all first happened, we called each other like every other day, or like every few days, just like crying, or just being scared, or just talking or ranting or whatever. And we still text each other all the time. It's very, very close. And I just really appreciate having friends that just understand exactly what what I'm going through. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're still able to support one another. Changing gears a little bit, we touched on this briefly, but maybe a little more detail. How has your customer base changed, expanded over the past couple months? Like, what changes are you seeing in your business that probably wouldn't have happened unless we were in this situation?
Yeah, I think tons of just local people from our immediate community have become regular customers when they weren't before. People I've never seen before. And, you know, we're in a spot where there's not too many cafes around. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they either had just never stopped to try, or maybe they're commuters and they just always go to a different spot or whatever. But, you know, people that live like a street over, 2 streets over, you know, we're seeing them all the time. We're like, we never saw you before this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really cool. We share a building with a gym, Me Fitness, and they're closed. And so we don't see any of those people. Any regular customers that came to us because they worked out at the gym are gone. And so, you know, we miss a lot of our people. We were wondering about them sometimes, but definitely like seeing people who are in our immediate community, and now we know where they live too. So, which is kind of funny.
That's awesome. What organizations have provided help on your journey with Arrow Coffeehouse? Like, who do you, apart from other roasters and shop owners, who else has been helpful?
I have to think about this a little bit. Well, I would say Stephen Green has definitely been a good friend, and just sometimes I'll like bribe him with stuff to just like talk on the phone, which has been nice. You know, I just met you and Mitch last year when I applied for the Built, what do you call it? Accelerator.
Yep.
Yeah, the accelerator. And since then, it's just been a great friendship, especially like between Mitch and I. It's just encouraging. To be honest, like my other shop was way out in Clackamas County, and I just think it was a different atmosphere, and it was really hard to get plugged into the Portland community. And so like 3 years ago when I opened my Portland cafe, then I was kind of just like digging around like what people are around to help and to connect with. But my first like 4 years of business, I feel like I was pretty much on my own. Like I didn't have a lot of help, honestly, except for maybe my parents, but really it was just a lot of Googling and a lot of just asking questions to people I did know or going to expos. For right now, I feel like there's probably lots of organizations that definitely like make purchases from me, which are really wonderful, and all of that stuff is so supportive. Like I had there's this cool nonprofit called, I think it's Project 31, or see, I'm messing up the name, but basically they help kids in foster care, and they purchase a bunch of pastries from us to deliver to DHS offices. And you're like, that is so nice. Like that not only helps me, but like this feels really special to be a part of, and I feel bad getting paid for this, but I'm going to take the money. And so like things like that, I think that has definitely been prevalent. And I think just you know, I think all the free information on Twitter, like I'm saying, all the people on Twitter have been really awesome, I think, for me.
That's awesome. Well, and I think you're touching upon something that if you've never been a founder, you might not even realize this, but I come from the tech world, and even founders in the tech world lead a very lonely existence, even though they're online constantly and have access to email or text or whatever pretty much constantly. But like, you're busy doing the work. You're not online. I noticed this with a lot of consumer products, folks, that you're completely detached and kind of on your own most of the time, and it's exponentially lonelier than another founder existence. So I'm just always impressed that people can like power through that, because it can be a grind for sure.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right. It's so lonely. It's really hard to to reach out and apply for help or apply for an organization or apply for Accelerator and to get rejected I don't take that well. I feel so bad. Like I'm like, I did it wrong. I messed up. They didn't want me. And then, so you see opportunities and you're like, I don't know if I should go for this or not, because it takes so much time away from the actual work that you're like, I don't know, do I do this or not? I will say, like, it's just funny. Thanks for not picking me, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, it was really great for me, that whole process. I actually loved doing it because I'd always been way too scared and way too like sensitive or whatever to just go for it and apply. And like, I just love that process, and it was really good. And so it's just hard to know which organizations are actually going to be helpful to you and which organizations are actually going to add value and not take away from the work. It's really hard. And sometimes they cost money too. And you're like, I don't know if I should. I've been in this 7 years. I know my profit margins, and that's something listed on your curriculum. So I don't know if I should do this or not. Yeah, totally.
Right. And there's not a lot of support or guidance. I notice specifically in Portland, we tend to be a very decentralized kind of community. So there's not like a one-stop shop that's like, oh, you should do this, this, and this. You just kind of have to figure it out on your own, which can be frustrating as well.
Totally.
Question from Juan. What advice would you give Latinx business owners that want to scale their businesses?
I think scaling for me is a funny story because I had a coffee shop I established 7 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I opened my second one. And then I decided to sell my first one in the fall. So it was like I scaled and then I went back. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But as far as just like growing your business and just, you got to play smarter. You got to, work harder and work smarter, not harder. That is the key, because you have to figure out getting systems in place to make your work more profitable without doing more work. Because if not, you're going to keep working your business all day, every day with the same kind of like inching forward, and you're not going to get ahead. And that's the hardest part, is getting ahead. And I think for many, 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 many years, I always felt like I was not getting ahead. Like I felt like I was going through the same thing year after year, and I wasn't making a profit really, or I was always struggling when something broke down and I'm like, oh, how am I going to pay for this? And the resources are so small, especially for someone like me who was so young, had no credit, didn't own anything, had no money. It was like, I couldn't get a business loan. I couldn't get a personal line of credit. I couldn't get anything. And so it's just, okay, how can I grow naturally without getting into too much debt, paying back the debt I already have maybe, and not trying to go too fast. You got to work on the efficiency side, get your systems dialed in, and you got to grow with the flow, and you got to push for growth without like overspending. We just get ahead of ourselves. Like most entrepreneurs are idea people. I have 50 ideas right now that I want to do with my business. I only need like $200,000 or I only need this. And you get into this like, well, I only need this and then I'll be successful. But then time goes on, and sometimes you get those things, and then you're like, well, now I only need this, and then I'll be able to be successful. And you go into this trap where all of a sudden you're in like tons of debt, and you're not making any money, and you're tired. And then that's it. You have to take it step by step and slow down, because I have been at this for 7 years of working a cafe. And I feel like just now in the last year, I have gotten actual attention for it. I've actually gotten recognition. I've actually gotten some clout in the industry. It took a long time for me to slowly work in there and slowly make the right steps. And so sometimes you're on social media and you see people open up these gorgeous cafes right away, beautiful, serving excellent things, really popular, getting written about, all these things. It's not like that for everybody. And it was not like that for me. And so you just...
Well, go ahead.
No, you just have to slow down. You have to just go on your own pace.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit upon something that I find a lot of founders struggle with, which is kind of that finish line fallacy, that all I need to do is get to this finish line and suddenly everything will be great, not realizing that that finish line is actually just the starting line for another marathon you have to run.
Yep.
Well, and this one, as you were answering, kind of sparked for me, as our friend Stephen Green is fond of saying, you can't just work in the business, you have to work on the business. How do you create that space? Like when you have so much to do and you're busy working in the business, how do you create that ability to kind of think strategically about where you're going, or does it happen simultaneously for you?
It does happen simultaneously a lot of the time. I definitely, especially those early morning baking times, I'm like there by myself. I usually in the quiet, I don't have anything going. It's just me just thinking and working. Yeah. But also that's my, like when I'm watching TV or playing video games or whatever, my mind is always just in a different place and thinking about things I need to do to grow in a really nice space. And it's not stressful for me. I'm not like anxious about it. It's just letting your mind relax and wander a little bit and just acknowledging ideas and acknowledging things. And usually I keep them to myself for a while and then I'll tell my husband, which is funny because one time I said, like, what's something I say all the time? And he said, I have an idea that you're not going to like. And I think it's because I hold on to it. I think about it for a while and then I'm like, okay, now I have to argue with him. Like I'm going to have to prove my point here sure. about why it's good. And so I think just having that time for your brain to just be elsewhere and just take life in and rest and really let your brain just be free. That's when I come up with my best ideas. But oftentimes I'm in the cafe helping employees, doing my business stuff, baking something, doing my business stuff. I'm definitely a multitasker, and a lot of working on the business is just right there in the cafe.
Yeah. Again, this is another one that you touched on briefly, but maybe a little bit more detail. You mentioned not reopening for a while, and the question here is, when reopening, there's the potential that a resurgence or increase could cause stuff to shut down again. Is your plan just to like ride it out in the current way, or what are you thinking like further future?
Yeah. So the reasoning behind, when we first closed our doors, we did it before they said we had to. And even more so, I really think that this is a serious sickness. I'm very concerned. I'm concerned for my family. I'm concerned for myself and for my employees. I really think this is a big deal. And, my thing is when I'm at work and when my employees are working, it is already stressful. We're trying to make customers happy. We're trying to make this things. We're trying to be fast. We're trying to be friendly. And, I think having another person right in front of you watching you do all those things is even more stressful. It is so hard, especially when you're trying to wonder if they are touching their nose or did they wash their hands or, being close to a human. There's no way we could be hospitable and friendly and loving in that situation while also handling 25 orders. There's no way we can do that. It's too stressful. And so for me, until this is handled where we're not afraid to hug somebody, I'm not going to let anyone get close to me in my crew because it's too stressful. I could not function. And even sometimes me and my employees just need to cry. It is hard. This is really hard work right now. And sometimes we need to cry and we don't need an audience for that. we don't need an audience if we need to just yell. We don't need an audience if we need to cuss. Like, we don't need an audience. We're not yelling at each other. That's not okay. But we just need our own space. We need space to be able to eat our lunch in peace. And so until we feel like we have that we are comfortable being around other people and that we're not in this space anymore, then I'll let people in. But I just don't think that's going to be for a long time. And that's okay. With our speaker box, we can see through the glass. We're still saying hi. We're still having conversations. We're still, having fun at work, and we're texting people gifts and making dancing videos. And we still feel like we're connecting with our people and with our community, with also having boundaries for ourselves and having a safe space to just work and do our job.
Thank you. Yeah, and another great video you put out is the one of you singing and getting picked up on the speaker box with people walking by. That's
it happens. Really. We realize that everyone can hear what we're saying inside if we don't turn the microphone off.
Next question. I loved your collaboration with Reverend Nats. Reverend Nats, thanks as always for the sponsorship. Any other exciting brand collaborations we can look forward to? Are you working on any other secret projects?
Okay, no. That was an awesome.
Would you like to?
Yeah. Hey, hit me up. Kind of right now. So this is exciting. One of my wholesale pastry clients is Stumptown Coffee, which is a huge honor. They're a huge inspiration in the industry, and I just love that company so much. They're an excellent company to work with. And now, as of next week, they're going to have 4 cafes open. And my responsibility is to bake for those things, as well as 3 to 4 other coffee shops right now. And I realized that has definitely taken away from my ability to just have free time in the kitchen, right? Like before it was like, sales are low, I'm going to make cheesecake. Sales are low, I'm going to do this. And right now I'm struggling to find the time to even do that. And so I am trying to work on getting some better systems so that I'll have some more time to do more fun things. But RevNat, I call him RevNat because that's just who he is, but the good Reverend, he had reached out and said, I want to give something away to my customers. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm down. And I'm thinking maybe like 20, 30 things. It was like 200 things. So it was a lot. And it was really fun. And it's really delicious if you haven't gotten one. But for right now, I'm like, I really got to dial on this wholesale system, and we'll see what happens after that.
Okay. Speaking of systems, this is a good one to jump into. Good segue. Not only are you on your social, but you've recently appeared on Square's social. How did that collaboration come about?
Yeah. Okay. That was really cool.
Like, whoa! I know her.
All this attention is still so new to me. Like I said, I've been in this like 7 years with no attention, and now I'm getting something. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fun. Okay. So getting dialed into the coffee industry, there was right in the beginning of this, there was a specialty coffee association. That's the big nonprofit that does all the important coffee things. They have the Coffee Research Center where they do any kind of coffee related science things. That's them. They also put on the largest expo. They also, do so much for the industry. They put on a COVID-19 special where they talked about how cafes could be changing, and I was invited to speak on that webinar. And that led to so much connections. It was just like an international webinar. It was so cool. It was hundreds of people. I can't believe it. But that connected me with Square, and so I did a few things with Square they had a huge coffee research project every year. They look into all the trends of coffee, and they publish a paper about it. And so I was used for that paper, and then it just kind of trailed into all these other things with Square, which was really cool.
Cool. That's awesome. Oh, good. Here's a really good one. I'm Latina and want to be in the coffee industry, open a coffee shop in the near future. And there's an abundance of resources available, but I'm unsure where to start or how to narrow them down. Any online resources you can recommend? That's the first question. And then the second question, did you ever deal with imposter syndrome when entering the industry?
Oh, good question. Hi, I want to be your friend. I don't have a lot of time right now, but we should be friends. Okay, so first question, online resources. That's a hard one. The best online resource I have found is just following people in the industry and interacting on social media. That what is we call social capital is the way that I've been able to make relationships where I can get my questions answered. The only other way I have found to understand the resources available to me is going to the expos and the trade shows, which is Coffee Fest and the Expo, the SCA Expo. Coffee Fest is very affordable, very like entry level, very good. Expo is very expensive, very big, very intimidating. But those are canceled right now. And so if you connect with me, I can tell you who to follow on social media that give a lot of free information away. But it is hard. It just seems really hard to get in there and to really understand what's out there, because even though I have a lot of friends in the industry, a lot of the information is still quiet. Like a lot of it is still kept really close, where you can't, just in the last year, I've just been bold enough to ask cafe owners, like, what are your sales numbers? What is going on with this? What do you do with this? What do you do with this? And everyone's like, oh, thanks for asking. Oh, now we could talk about it. But it's just very, it's just a very polite culture, white culture. Sorry, but it's just a very like polite, nice culture where you just don't ask things. And so it just feels very closed off. But on the other question about, what was the second question?
Imposter syndrome. Did you ever feel imposter syndrome?
Yes. All the time, every day, today.
What time is it? I'm feeling imposter syndrome right now.
This morning when I'm baking for these cafes. I'm not a baker. I have no training. Are my scones even good enough? All the time. Imposter syndrome just creeps up of just like, do I even know what I'm talking about? Like sometimes I'm like, I was even doing my books the other day and I'm like, do I even know what cost of goods are? Like, I think I know what they are, but what if there's something different? Like, because I've never had training, I haven't, I know what I know because I've kind of scruffily figured it out and listened to conversations and asked questions when I needed to. But all the time there's that, voice of like, are you legit? Are you doing what everyone else is doing? Are you like are you professional? Like, right. All the time. And I think, for me, I don't know why I'm able to just work through it. I think having a good support system to talk to that reaffirms who you are. Like if I didn't have my partner, Trevor, if I couldn't cry to him and tell him like, I'm a loser, like no one likes me. And then, and he goes, no, everyone likes you. He's the nice one. And then maybe like someone like Ian, where I'm like, I'm a loser, no one likes me. He goes, why are you being like that? Whatever, everyone likes you, And then, having your support system there to really affirm who you are, affirm what you're doing, and also, learn, ask good questions. Like if you want to know something, you should search Twitter and find out, and just keep growing. And so it's constant. Yep. Sometimes I feel on top of the world and I feel like I'm the best. And then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm the worst. And it's a natural part of life and entrepreneurship.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. I think, we're always hopeful to just kind of mitigate it. Like you're not gonna get rid of the highs and lows. You just make them a little less high and a little slow, hopefully, some way.
Yeah. I mean, in October, I shattered my elbow, and I was out of work, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't put on my pants. I couldn't I had major surgery and reconstructive surgery, and like every day, I just was like, why do I do this? Why am I doing this? Why do I own a business? I can't do anything. And it was so depressing and hard to like not be able to do anything. And, you know, looking back now, it just feels so far away. Like that just feels like another lifetime where I'm like, you know, I'm like, oh, I love my job. This is great.
What has been the biggest surprise to you over the past couple months? Like what's been most surprising?
You know, I think the biggest surprise for me is my new employees that work for me now. I think my approach to being an employer has always been with a lot of empathy and understanding. And I never hire requesting experience. I want things to be entry level. I want to grow people and change people. But I think when this happened, I didn't have the capacity to do that. And so I hired people. I hired white men who that's also a hard thing for me to do. And they came into the place with experience and knowledge ready to go. And they also wanted to do whatever I said, which usually in my experience as an employer, employing lots of young people and coffee professionals, it takes trust and building time where everything I say, there's always kind of a pause or there's always a questioning of reasoning. And I don't mind those things actually normally. Like, I think that is just a part of the workplace. And I think employers are going to have to do that for this next generation more and more. We're going to have to change and adapt to build that trust with people. But the people I hired are not in that generation. And they're in the generation where like, you're the boss, you tell me what to do. And so like, I will say something and they will say heard, and they will go and do it. And I've never had so much power ever. Like, wow. And that's really fun. It's really fun to be able to say, okay, I want to do the special. And within a few days, it's like done. It's like ready to go. They've dialed in. This is what we need from the store. This is what we need to do. That is really cool. That's so surprising to me that these guys just come in and wanting to just care about me and care about my business. And that has been really sweet. The customer support, the love we get on social media and just in person has been overwhelming, like so nice. Like people just really appreciate us, and that feels so good. That has been so surprising too. And just I need the encouragement. My crew needs the encouragement. You know, when you write a little note at the end of your order, you might not think it's a big deal, but it's just like another like keep going for us. You know, we see that, we're like, good job, keep going. And that has been really special and really sweet. So those, I think, are the most surprising things.
That's awesome. Yeah, in fact, Annika, who was on the show yesterday, was talking about, she has a folder of those, right? Like those little notes that are just like, thank you, or you did well on this thing. And like whenever she goes through some of those situations, she's like, I'm gonna get that folder out and like check that stuff, because that's reaffirming. This is the last question, but it's a great one to end on. So we heard that you are rebranding. Maybe talk a little bit about the motivation for that, the idea, and maybe when is that happening, given what we're going through right now?
Oh, good question. You tell me when it's happening, because I don't. So rebranding. We are rebranding. I'm building a brand new company to take over for Arrow eventually. I maybe about a year ago, a year and a half ago, I just wasn't feeling good about my shop and my identity in my shop. And it was like, you know, so 3 years ago, I opened this Portland cafe and I started really getting into the industry, going to the industry things, making the industry friends. And I just wasn't proud of my cafe, which is weird because it's beautiful. It's on a main corner. Like it's a dream shop. It's beautiful, but I just wasn't feeling good. And I didn't feel like I was standing out. I didn't feel like the identity was my identity. Like Arrow has nothing to do with me, literally nothing. When I was 21, I had this opportunity to open a cafe, and it was like, oh, I need a name. Shoot, like, and I just literally the name I chose it because I was like, well, this is funny. Ready? I chose it because I was like, I'm really into rustic things now, and Arrow goes with that rustic feel. But if I ever want to change my style, Arrow could stay the same no matter what style I change. So I never have to change my business name forever, no matter what style I have, because it will stay. It's adaptable, and it's not adaptable. But I think, for me, in my coffee career too, I think when I was out in Clackamas in that rural area, I didn't feel like I could be myself because I needed to really sell coffee there. Coffee shop lifestyle is not out there really. And my shop was the only shop there in a long radius. Like, it was the only place, and I still had to explain what espresso was. I still had to push coffee. I still had to always justify my prices. If I wanted to wear bright red lipstick, I would get comments all day long. It was just a different culture there. It was a completely different culture. And so I was adapting to fit the culture of the community. And then when I opened in Portland, I realized the community wanted my flair and my flavor and who I was as a person to come through. And I realized that my brand had nothing to do with that at all. And I don't want to do the work if it's not me, And I realized how freeing that was when I was working in Portland. And I felt so much more that I could be myself. That's why I ultimately decided to sell my first shop. I was like, this is just not me. And this is not where I want to be. And the money doesn't matter at that point. And so I sold that shop, at the same time was planning this rebrand of like, who am I? How can I get that represented in a brand? How can I really feel life and feel warmth and feel like happy with my own brand? And so maybe over a year ago, my daughter was born, my second daughter, Lupe. And I was just holding her one day, like right after she was born. And I was like, I got the name. And I texted Ian. I said, okay, I got the name. Are you ready? And I texted him because he will just tell you the truth. He'll just say, I don't like it, And I texted him and he said, you got it. And I was like, I know. And then let me tell you, branding is really hard. I have been working on the actual brand logo, everything since then until now. And I've gone through many designers and just not getting the right feel, because when you want to represent yourself as a person, like I'm Latina, so I want to show my culture. But I'm not going to be cheesy. I don't want piñatas in it. I don't want, I don't want Frida Kahlo in it. I don't that's exactly where designers go. They go, you're Latina. Let me put you in this box over here. And I understand, because when someone's driving by and they see the logo, you want them to know it's Latina. But I also don't want Frida Kahlo in it. So it's just a really hard balance when you bring your culture into something, to not turn it into a stereotype and not to be cheesy. It is really hard. And at the same time, if you can't find a specific like Latina brand manager, you either get work that's not necessarily a good logo or a solid brand that you can use across many, many different forms, which I'm planning to. You might get a great drawing, but it's not like a brand. And so it's just been hard. It's been hard to work through this thing. So if you are going to create a brand, give yourself a lot of time and a big budget. A lot of time, big budget.
Well, and I think Portland companies also struggle with another unique perspective of that is there's this interplay between you can't seem too big, You need to seem like professional and polished, but you still need to seem local. And like that can be challenging from a brand perspective.
Yes, exactly. And you're like, it's hard for the designer. This is like,
Yeah.
it's an impossible job for a designer when you're like, okay, I want something happy and fun, but not too young and too trendy because I'm a mature mom. And also, but I don't want it to be old. And I want it to be happy and bright, but mature because like, I'm not like happy and bright. I don't want pink. Like, that's not me. I'm not going to have a pink thing up there.
Right.
And so when you use these words, I wanted to have some of that street culture I grew up with, but not too street because I also wear Dansko clogs and that's like not street. But I mean, that is like my identity as a person, right? And all Latina Americans feel this, or Latin Americans in general, they feel like, you're either Latin or you're not. And you have like a flip, like switch, flip it. Oh, today I can enjoy J. Crew and I can wear my clogs and, and then over here, okay, I actually like sneakers and, I want to wear baby fat. And it's just, you can be both. And I think that's where I arrived to last year when I was trying to decide on this brand, that you can be whatever you want to be and still be Latina American. You can be whatever you want. And that's the beauty of it. And so I have a brand manager now that I love. She's totally nailing the brand. It's almost done. And then it's just all the admin. So it's a brand new company separate from Arrow. They're two different companies. And so I have to rebuild all the admin side of this, like get a bank account, get a QuickBooks account, all those things, and then switch over. And so the hard part about all this happening is it happened right when I was about to do this. And so now I've taken all this time to build a web store, which takes a lot of time when you have hundreds of items and modifiers, and to replicate that to a new company is going to be really hard. And so that's just going to take some time. So I'm not sure when exactly it's going to launch. I hope sooner rather than later, but at the same time, everyone's moving at a snail's pace. And so getting that brand done, getting the signage done, getting the menus, like all of that's going to take time. So it's coming one day.
Cool. Well, you made it through all the questions. Thank you so much for your thoughtful and insightful responses. Those were really, really helpful. Now is the time when we kind of turn the tables and say, we've got a community of people here who showed up to chat with you. What can we be doing to help you or help the Arrow? How can we be most helpful as a community right now?
Yeah. I think every single purchase counts, even if it's just a coffee. It's really, really sweet and really special. I do see almost every order and it does feel just like a really sweet thing to get a visit or to get an order from a friend. Or a community member. Interacting on social media is also really wonderful. On our page, if you just share something that we did, recommend us somewhere, like, someone just said someone recommended us on Nextdoor yesterday, and that was just like, oh, thank you, because this is hard. And all those are encouraging things. I think the next stage I'm in is going to be looking for funding, because I have a big thing on the horizon that I need funding for. And I am having a hard time figuring out what I'm going to do about it. So, if you have resources for that, like good, solid resources, I know of all the organizations, I know of all the directions I can go in, but it just feels like a big decision to make that impacts like 10 years of your life, And so it's like, it's hard to just say, okay, this is how my 30s are going to go. And so, funding is the next thing that I need to figure out, because right now we share a kitchen space and we are outgrowing that, which is really cool. But that means there's a big step in front of us where it's like we need to figure out how to not share anymore. And that's a big responsibility. It's like when you move into your own house for the first time and you don't have housemates. Or you only have one housemate. It's a big deal. So that's on the horizon, but I just really appreciate all the interaction online and all the encouragement, because it feels really good and it feels like I'm doing the right thing. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Erica, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thanks for making the time. I realize it's the end of a long day for you, so thank you for bringing all the energy and insights for us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.